So a newly introduced reading number 33 in the level 2 curriculum says that your strategy also needs a strategy. So it starts by saying that a strategy formulation process should be consistent with the predictability and the malleability of the environment in which the business operates. Predictability refers to how accurately and how far into the future can a company forecast industry factors such as demand, corporate performance, that is the profits and the cash flows, and market expectations. So if the company can do it for a reasonable degree in the future, that is for the next 4 or 5 years, I'm able to predict my demand, etc., then we will say that the predictability is high. Malleability is the extent to which a company and its competitors can influence the industry. So if the demand is not very good, the company and the competitors can raise prices so as to recover their costs. If the company is able to easily raise prices, or he is able to supply more if demand is high, he is able to shut down his factories easily if the supply is low. If he is able to influence the industry as the factors change, then we will say the malleability of the business is high. Now, different industries and different businesses will have varying degrees of predictability and malleability. That is, there is varying degrees to which you can predict the environment, and there is varying degrees to which you can yourself affect the environment given a particular environment. Depending on the predictability and the malleability should define your strategy. So if the business is less predictable and less malleable, the strategy that we'll study in detail that is recommended is the adaptive approach. If it is less malleable but more predictable, you can predict but you can't change it much, then we say you should follow a classical approach. If it is more malleable and less predictable, then you should follow the shaping approach. And if it is more malleable and more predictable, that is, you can predict it also and you can change or you can affect it also easily, then we can follow the visionary approach in our strategy. The classical style is advised when the company faces an environment that is highly predictable and that cannot easily be changed. So less malleability, high predictability. The classical style says that a company should identify the unique abilities and resources and formulate a plan to achieve the most favorable market position. So what is going to happen in the future is highly predictable. You will not be able to change the industry at that time. So what you should focus on is that whatever are your current strengths and your current resources, you should position them in such a way so as to be able to best capitalize on this demand scenario or this expected scenario in the future. So this is the classical style of strategy. This includes multiple rounds of methodic planning and quantitative prediction tools so as to generate long-term forecasts and what is the best strategy to follow that maximizes your profits and cash flows. One of the goals of classical style is to optimize efficiency, because you know what will happen in the future because predictability is high. You won't be able to manage it much then, you won't be able to change things. So today itself, you should take in right decisions such that you are the most efficient or you are the best placed for this position that is likely to be in the future. So high predictability, less malleability implies the classical style. Analysis of an industry based on the Porter's 5 forces model is also an example of the classical style. So if we are analyzing competition, we are analyzing threat of substitutes, we are analyzing threat of buyers, etc., that means we have some degree of predictability and we are positioning ourselves right now to deal with that situation in the future. An adaptive style is recommended when the environment is highly unpredictable and is not easily changed. So it's not malleable also, you can't affect it much and you can't predict it also. So in an adaptive style, the company should be able to react quickly to change. This is achieved by ensuring that there is willingness to constantly refine long-term goals in response to a changing environment. So even long-term goals can quickly change. The ability to quickly redistribute or acquire new resources to meet changing conditions. So some amount of cash must be kept in buffer. Assets should be leased. You shouldn't be stuck to one technology because all that will restrict your flexibility. A goal of maximizing flexibility rather than efficiency. So even though a best or most efficient process requires very high fixed costs, we may not go in for the most efficient process. We'll rather go for a slightly expensive but a more flexible process. The adaptive style requires short-term and continuous planning rather than a rigid plan. So different hypotheses or different situations will require different strategies. So strategies that are closely linked to operational processes to capture signals for change and minimize information loss are what are recommended in this style. So you should be able to pick up when change is happening and you should be able to reposition yourself accordingly. The shaping strategy is advised when the underlying environment is less predictable but more malleable. So these companies seek to influence the unpredictable business environment to further their business interests. So again, because it is unpredictable, the planning cycle is short or continuous with a high degree of flexibility. How businesses can influence their environment or how will the high malleability play out is by building a network of committed customers, suppliers and partners, such that even if things change, the company can go to its suppliers and ask for a discount, or the company can reduce the margins given to partners, or the company can charge a higher price from its customers. So even though I can't predict in the future, I have loyal customers, loyal suppliers and loyal partners who I will be able to manage so as to still maintain my profitability. Defining newer markets, newer technologies and business practices, again I may be able to affect my environment. So if I have the best practices, I have the best technology, then even if industry growth is not very good or industry shapes up in a way that I did not expect, but because I am the best positioned in that industry, I will be able to affect the environment to suit me better than the others. Promoting your interests through marketing, lobbying and strategic partnerships are also a common part of the shaping strategy. Remember, shaping is when less predictability but high malleability. You can affect your environment. Visionary approach is advised when the environment is more predictable also and more malleable also. So visionary style does not take the environment as given but seeks to alter it to further the company's interests. So this entails high risk and profoundly disruptive strategies. So they often involve this technique of build it and they will come approach. So the future demand and the future is highly predictable also, and you can affect it also by your products, by your strategies, by your practices, by your technology, by your products. So in such a case, what is advised is that you should take a visionary approach. You should create the industry, or you should define how the industry will progress rather than take the environment and accept it as status quo. You should challenge the status quo and try to change it in the direction that you feel is the best for yourself and your customers and for everybody else. To be able to make such a game-changing impact, businesses must have adequate resources to commit and stay focused on a long-term goal rather than constantly changing strategy. Another style that may come into play when the company is about to go out of business. So it's not about malleability or predictability. This is the fifth style, that is the survival style. So survival style is used when the company faces severe restrictions on the access to capital or other important resources, and when the survival of the company itself may be threatened. So during such a crisis, none of the other approaches is suitable, and the company should defensively focus on shoring up capital, cutting expenses, restructuring in order to be ready when the business environment improves and a long-term strategy can be formulated. This basically says just survive for the time being. So some examples of the appropriate styles. For the adaptive style, that is less predictable and less malleable, specialty retail, office electronics, construction materials are normally industries that follow this type of an approach, because demand is difficult to predict. When fashions or tastes change, you cannot say. When something new comes up, you cannot say. So you have to be ready to adapt and ready to adopt whatever new technology and new method of production and new strategies are there in the market. For the classical style, where demand is more predictable and less malleable, this is the Porter's 5 forces focus on efficiency and optimization. Oil companies, household products, tobacco products fall in this range. So you can predict, but you can't affect the environment much. Focus on cost optimization. In the shaping strategy, used when the environment is less predictable but more malleable. So internet software and services, you may not be able to predict, but you may be able to shape the industry if you have innovative strategies and if you have the right tools and the right technologies. Construction and engineering, healthcare technology, again, industries where more innovation is possible and you can affect by your relationships, by your strategies, by your partners, etc. In a visionary strategy, where an environment is highly predictable also and it is more malleable also. We generally see food product companies, gas utilities, aerospace and defense companies in the US follow this approach. Some pitfalls that the management is likely, or some mistakes that the management is likely to make in the process of strategy formulation. First, you focus only on the predictable environment. Because you can predict it, your strategy is firmly rooted and designed to manage it. Because you're unable to predict it, you ignore it and you don't even consider, or you don't even keep a buffer. So the first mistake is that of focusing on only things that you can predict and ignoring the others. Inaccuracy in gauging the dimensions that is in the prediction. So executives often overestimate the predictability of the business environment and their ability to affect it. In reality, the predictability is also not so high and your ability to affect, or the malleability, is also not very high. Relying on predefined timetables. So companies use structured planning cycles, that is once a year there will be a board meeting, or twice or once a quarter there will be this discussion, once a year there will be this discussion. Oftentimes that the business environment may change more rapidly than you are changing your planning or your strategy. Having a cultural mismatch can be a problem. So a corporate culture may be attuned to a classical style, because that's how people are used to working, on focusing on efficiencies and doing their job best, and not caring so much about external environments, reading on new technologies or new things, etc. Whereas an adaptive style may be more appropriate. So if my workforce is attuned to working in the classical style, when an adaptive style is more appropriate, then again that may not be in the best interest, or it may be detrimental. Relying on a single style for a diverse division of a big company. Relying on a single style for diverse divisions of a big company. So different companies and different businesses may require different strategies. I cannot have one strategy for all segments of my company or for all subsidiaries. Finally, your style needs to evolve with the changing industry life cycle. If your style is not evolving, then again you will be behind the curve. So these are some pitfalls that you should be aware of. No need to memorize all these points. If you read them once or twice, it should be good, because there will be 3 options given on the exam. At level 3, it would have been really difficult because you would have had to memorize all these, because the essay type question may ask you to list out 2 or 3 points, which is not the case at level 2. So just go through it again or watch the video once again and try to keep these points fresh in your mind. Normally a question or an objective type won't give you serious trouble. So thanks a lot, and see you next time.